Hey everyone, welcome back to Emma Bean's Joy of Knitting with Gigi. I am Gigi, and today we are doing our December Ravelry Roundup for 2025. These are patterns that have been offered on Ravelry during the month of November, and I have a couple of categories so we can get on with that and see some of the things that are new, maybe that you can be inspired by, that we can enjoy knitting up coming this new year. And with that said, first I want to get this out of the way. If you have enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, give me a like, go ahead and subscribe, hit the subscribe button. I am very close to 1,000 subscribers, and that will really help me towards moving on and moving up into being able to provide better services as far as video quality goes. So either way, it's free. You don't have to do anything. You can unsubscribe at any time, whatever. I would really appreciate it. And please comment below, because the only way I know that I'm not talking to the void of space or the Ethernet or whatever is by your comments, and I really do appreciate them. I actually do get to know a number of you that comment regularly, and I really appreciate that. So with that said, let's move on. We have our very first category, which is hats. Our very first hat under this category is called the Kalia by Stella Igidi, I-G-I-D-I. And this is a hat that has color work, so it's two different colors of approximately 109 yards of DK weight yarn, and that's what was used for the sample. This sample was knit on a 3.75 millimeter needles or US 5, and also a 4 millimeter or US size 6. But obviously you use whatever needle you can to get gauge. Let's see what the gauge is. The gauge is 24 stitches and 26 rounds is what should equal the 10 centimeters or the 4 inches that we would get using the 4 millimeter US size 6 needle. Excuse me. So she doesn't really put a lot in this, but I will say I really like the pattern shape of this. The top of it is really pretty. It kind of has like a rose, if you're looking up from the top of it, pattern, and diamonds on the side. It's very graphic. Your colors that you choose would really make this hat pop, and I just absolutely loved how this looks. It looks to me, because it's DK, it's going to be a really quick knit, and if you use the right material, it could be exceptionally warm. So that is the Kalia hat by Stella Igidi or Igidi. And the next one is a hat called Studio Hat by Maxim Sear. And this is basically 3 different colors. It is a ribbed hat. Let's see what he says. It's a 2x2 rib stitch, increasing stitches. So this one is knit a little bit differently. You start at the top and you go down to the rim. So you start at the top with a 2x2 rib stitch, and you're increasing stitches until you reach your desired circumference, which I think that way would actually be kind of fun, because you can make it longer, you can make it wider, you can try it on as you go on. And then it says the brim is worked in a different color, and a small section of 1x1 rib stitch is added in a 3rd color at the very end before finishing with the elastic bind off for a really clean and stretchy edge. There's 3 sizes. Use the same stitch count. The finished circumference depends on your gauge. So he said, let's see, this is also worked in a DK yarn, and the gauge is 24 stitches and 32 rows for your 4 inches in 2x2 rib, working in the round and as it is blocked. So I really love the color blocking of this. I think this is a very it could be extremely masculine, it could be very feminine. You could really make this based on the colors that you use. You could make it anything. It would be a spectacular hat for just about anybody. So I really like that one, Studio Hat by Maxim Cyr. So the next one is called the Rope Bridges Hat. And let me scroll down here to it. So it's the Rope Bridges Hat by Celeste Knitwear. And I love the cabling on this. I think this is so beautiful. Again, we're using a DK yarn, which is great for the wintertime. DK yarn is fabulous for hats. If you do a fingering weight hat, you're going to have to double it to get some warmth, add some mohair, add some alpaca. DK and thicker is probably much better for a winter knit. So the gauge on this one is 22 stitches and 36 rows. And interestingly, this is using a 3mm or a 2.5 US and also 3.5mm or US 4. So it's not a really big needle that you're using this on. They did use Drops Daisy as the yarn, which I thought was really interesting. So this is knitting around from the bottom up, and it is using DK weight merino wool. The design features a combination of different cables, and then the folded brim is a 2x2 brim. 2x2 rib. Sorry about that. So that is the Rope Bridges Hat by Celeste Knitwear. Now, I'm going to say the second to last hat, because the last hat's kind of a surprise. The second to last hat is the Moss Hill Beanie by Benjamin Matthews. Now, Benjamin Matthews is kind of a star in the knitting community as far as beanies go. He just is fabulous at designing these hats, and pretty much kind of known for that. So he says the Moss Hill Beanie combines dropped and cross stitches to create a bold texture without the use of a cable needle, which I thought was really interesting because when you see this, it looks like it's a cabled hat. It creates a fun fabric with little fuss, and he says, these are his words, "Trust me, it's way easier than it looks," which I love that. For his project, he used West 7th Wool Merino DK in the Moss Hill colorway. And he says he can't talk about how much he enjoyed working with this new to him yarn and this lovely color. I think this color is fabulous, by the way. I love the green on this. So, excuse me. As stated, it is a DK. The gauge is 24 stitches, and I'm doing the calculation, and 29 rows for 4 inches. He gives this in a 1-inch gauge, which is 6 stitches and 7.25 rows per inch. So I was trying to do mental math really quickly and divide that by, or times that by 4. So 24 stitches and 7 times 28 plus 29 rows for your 4 inches. And he uses a 4mm needle, which is a US size 6. Now, this last one that I'm going to talk about is, okay, so I have to knit this because it's so cute. It's called the Bobble Dog Hat with Ear Holes. And I have some grand doggies that my kids each have that have cute little ears that I'm going to knit these for. These are really cute. This is a bulky weight yarn, and the gauge is 15 stitches and 22 rows. You only need between 66 and 105 yards, which is very little, and it's knit up on a 6mm needle, which is a US 10. So it's going to go really fast. Here's what it says. I mean, seriously, this picture, it just speaks for itself. Knit your dog an adorable bobble hat with ear holes, a contrast brim, and a fluffy pom-pom on top. This dog hat knitting pattern is designed for comfort and cuteness, so your pup can stay warm without squished ears. It's worked flat on straight needles, bottom up, with simple shaping and a neat seam at the back. So you can choose between quick, flat knit ties or an I-cord ties to help keep the hat in place under the chin, which I thought was so cute. So I used a couple of colors. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell you who the designer was. It's Luis Bolanos. So That is the try it again. The Bobble Dog Hat with ear holes from Luis Bolanos. Next, let's go on to, I'm just going to mention it in this. I just have one set of gloves, and that is the Ooey Gooey gloves by Andrea Mowry. We all have seen the Ooey Gooey sweater, and we saw the Ooey Gooey cowl. There's an Ooey Gooey hat. Now she has the Ooey Gooey gloves. So I did want to mention those. I thought those were pretty important to put in because they dropped this month. And if you like Ooey Gooey, it's a mitt set. So you can knit them fingerless glove edition or full mittens edition. She offers both, which I like. It's basically 2 patterns for the price of 1. And that is adorable. So she uses light fingering on this, 32 stitches to 48 rows and 48 rows to 4 inches. And she uses a 2.25 millimeter needle or a US size 1. Also, she uses a 2 millimeter needle or a US size 0. This would be a really quick knit. I'm thinking about doing these fingerless mitts with the cowl and maybe even the matching beanie. I think that would be really, really cute. So that's the Ooey Gooey mitt set by Andrea Mowry. Now let's move on to scarves / shawls / cowls. We're going to do all things up here around the neck. So that's what we're going to next. The first item in this section is a scarf, and it is by Maxim Cyr. It is called the Emporium scarf. He just came out with this. I love this scarf. What I love about it, it is stranded color work, but it is worked in the round. So after you're finished, you fold it flat back to back, and you have both sides are the same. You never see the back side of the stranded color work. I love that. What I love about this, excuse me, is the exceptional graphic chevron design of this. The colors that were chosen were amazing. I cannot even imagine all the beautiful variations that are in the projects section. Go to my bundle that I have for December 2025 and take a look at some of the projects that have been done on this. This is just spectacular. It is knit, let me give you a rundown, in light fingering, and the gauge is 34 stitches and 36 rows for 4 inches in stranded color work in the round once it's blocked. So the US size 2.75 millimeter needles on a US 2. That is what he uses. And again, that's the Emporium scarf by Maxim Cyr. Now the next one is the Flannel Crush Cowl. This is by Samantha Guerin. She is the one who designed the Gambit grid, the grid Gambit cowl, which I loved, and this Flannel Crush is no exception. It is absolutely spectacular. Again, this I believe is a mosaic. It's using sport weight. It did come out November 2025, right at the very end, after I had already done the November Ravelry Roundup. So I decided to push this one into December. So the gauge on this is 19 stitches, 32 rows for 4 inches using a main color yarn, worked flat and blocked. And the Flannel Crush Cowl is worked flat beginning at one corner, shaped with increases and decreases, and seamed after blocking. And it features an all over mosaic pattern, a built-in I-cord edge, and an I-cord bind off. So pretty similar to the Gambit grid, but a different look. You know, the patterning is different. And you use a 3.75 millimeter or US 5 needle for this. I just thought this was really beautiful. I really like knitting, mosaic knitting. I just think it's so beautiful. It's so easy. It's a great way to do color work or make it look like you've done stranded color work, but you're just slipping stitches, which is just spectacular. And with that said, I'm going to move into the next one, which is the Flannel Crush Shawl. So she has not only released the cowl, but she released the shawl too. And again, 21 stitches and 30 rows. On this one, we're using a 4mm or US 6. And the wingspan on is 60 inches. So it's a nice size shawl in case you don't want a cowl. You want something bigger, something you can wrap more around your shoulders. That would be your choice, would be to grab this shawl. The pattern actually includes both charted and fully written out instructions for those of you who don't like charts. So you can have that. It is a triangle shape and is worked flat in the beginning. Again, we have side I-cord edges bound off in an I-cord edge. It is just beautiful. I can only imagine all the different color variations that you could do on this, how beautiful it would be. So that is the Flannel Crush Cowl and the Flannel Crush Shawl by Samantha Guerin. Okay, the next one, I love this. It's the Manderley Scarf by Amy Loden. This looks fairly simple. It looks to me to be a lot of garter stitching, but those scalloped edges are so feminine and so pretty. It is knit in a DK weight yarn with 18.5 stitches and 35 rows, measuring for your 4 inches, and that's in the garter stitch that you're going to do. You have 2 different needles that you work on. The first one's a 4mm US size 6 and then a 5mm US size 8 needle. It's a classic garter stitch scarf with scallop border on each side of its on each of its 4 sides. This says the scarf is a wonderfully mindless project. So if you want a palette cleanser, if you want something that is really going to help you move on to something more difficult, if you need something mindless and very easy to do, this would be your choice. But the scallop edges add just enough interest to keep the project engaging. So it's not a total slog. It's not super boring. It comes in 3 sizes, the mini, the midi, and the maxi. The midi and maxi are traditional long scarves designed to wrap around the neck, and the mini is designed to be tied at the neck more in a neckerchief style. So you can hold it, she says, it's designed to be knit using a DK weight yarn or a fingering weight held double with a lace fluffy, such as a brush suri alpaca or a mohair. You could also hold it with a sport weight with like a mohair, which would still give you that similar to DK weight. She also said, for those of you who are not as experienced, a video is provided for one slightly more advanced skill that's used in the pattern. I really appreciate that when designers include it so that people who may not understand the skill or don't have those skills yet can develop them, because a picture is worth a video, is worth 1,000 words. And I really, really appreciate when they do that. So she gives you all the different yardages that you need for the 3 different scarves. And again, excuse me, gives you everything that you need as far as what size needles, stitch markers, locking progress keepers to know your right side from your wrong side, so on and so forth. And I love this scarf. I think it's very, very pretty. My youngest daughter, Katie, who just started knitting, I think this is going to be her next knit because she understands the knit. I actually need her to start purling, but I think the scalloped edge will give her a good feeling of creating something a little less basic and with a little bit more interest, but it'll give her a bit of a challenge. So I like that one. Okay, the next shawl is the cyclamen shawl. Now last month we had the cyclamen cowl. So now she's offering this up as a shawl. Yarn weight, she says any gauge, any kind of yarn you want. The gauge is supposed to be 20 stitches and 36 rows. And she gives you multiple needle sizes that you can use: a 3.5, a 4mm, 4.5, or a 5mm. So 4, 6, 7, or 8 size needle. Your size is available, adjustable. She goes, knit until you run out of yarn. What a great stash buster. I love that. So you can knit it with pretty much any yarn, any gauge kind of design, perfect for stash busting. Use minis, leftover yarn, odd skeins, yarn, advents, scraps to create a piece that is unique and magical. It is the sister project to the Cyclamen cowl, which I just thought was stunning. The designer on this one is Ksenia Nagion. She is was that new to me designer out of San Francisco by way of Ukraine originally. So the Cyclamen shawl by, let me say her name again, Ksenia Nagion. The final shawl and or cowl is the Sigur wrap, Sigur, and this one is by Dorota Makowitz. Dorota Makowitz. This one is just so pretty. It's knit with a DK yarn, and the gauge is 18 stitches and 24 rows over 4 inches in stockinette, using a 4.5 millimeter or size 7 needle. I just love this. It's one size, it's adjustable. The edge stitching is just so beautiful, and it looks to me to be a pseudo moss type stitch. It's kind of a textured stitch. Let me look here and see what she says. It's generously sized, wide enough to envelop your shoulders and long enough to wrap around twice or wear as an oversized scarf. Along each edge runs a bold cable pattern, adding structure and a touch of timeless elegance. The body of the wrap contrasts the cables with a richly textured stitch pattern that catches the light and showcases the depth of the wool. The wrap is worked back and forth in one piece from tip to tip with built-in I-cord edges. The center of the wrap is positioned at the midpoint of the adjustable straight section. So you continue working until you achieve the desired length, and then you can also change the width by making more or less increases. I love that they give you all of these options so you can really make it to yourself. And that is the Sigur wrap with Dorota Makowitz. Now let's get on to the sweaters. This first sweater is called the Autumn Pullover, and it is by Ozetta, Haley Smedley. This is an amazing pullover. It is super oversized. I know that especially right now, these younger knitters are really, really into the baba sweaters, or baba sweaters, however they pronounce them. And this to me is a sweater that is an absolute dupe for one of those sweaters. You could knit this up and it would be stunning. She uses Aran weight yarn, and the gauge is 16 inches and 24 rows in stockinette. So 4 inches is your general, 4 inches, 16 stitches and 24 rows and 4 inches. I'm sorry. I don't know where I got stuck on that one. Oh my gosh. Okay. Needle size 5 millimeter, US size 8, or 5.5 millimeter, US size 9 needles. Suggested yarn, I would definitely do this with a non-superwash wool and really try to make this as like a baba dupe. So she says the Autumn Pullover is worked from the top down. It features dropped shoulders with a loose and oversized silhouette. The collar is doubled for durability and extra warmth. It features clean lines and classic details made to be worn anywhere, any day. It has around 14 inches of positive ease, okay? So you can make this as big or as little as you want. And I just think it's absolutely stunning. That's the Autumn Pullover by Ozetta. The next one is called the Fern Line by Joanna Eng. Joanna Eng is one of my favorite designers. I am going to, one of the knits that I am aspiring to knit in 2026 is the Rib Wave. That's another one of her designs. And I had started, but then I had to frog it because I completely messed up and I couldn't fix it. So I have to start all over again. But with that said, this Fern Line is so pretty. It's knit with a DK, and the gauge for 4 inches or 10 centimeters in an Irish moss stitch is 21 stitches and 30.5 rows, okay? You're using a 3.5 millimeter US size 4 needle, a 4.5 millimeter US size 7 needle, and a 4 millimeter or US size 6 needle. So those are the ones that they offer for you. There are 9 sizes available. I love this pattern. It's been tech edited and tested. This is going to be one of those that has fun stitch design that's going to be engaging. It's going to keep your interest, but it also has a very modern look to it and a relaxed fit, which I really like. It works seamlessly from the top down, starting from the back neck and working back and forth with German short rows to shape the shoulders. The back is then worked down to the underarm, and then stitches are picked up along each front. So you're going to pick up stitches along the front left and the front right, knit down, and then you'll join the two front sides together under the collar, probably with a cast on, right? People like the backwards cast on. I don't particularly. I've done another one that I like better, which is you knit and then pull it back on your needle. I think I'll do a short on that just so you can see that, because I really do like that way. Anyway, the front and back are then joined that way and worked all the way down to the same length as the back, and then joined all the way around, which creates the underarms. So then the sleeves are picked up around the armholes, worked in the round, and then the stitches are picked up around the neckline to work the folded neckband. You know, I took a class with Patty Lyons on our river cruise, and one of the things that she mentioned, which I really am taking to heart, is she doesn't like a neckline that's just cast on and then you knit the neckline and then you go on to the yoke. She thinks that you should always pick up the neckline later and knit it up, which gives it more structure. This type of construction really is the type of construction that gives it more structure, because you're actually going to have a seam up here, you're going to have a seam here, you'll have a seam along the neckline, you'll have seams for your sleeves, because you're just picking up along the edges. You're not necessarily sewing them or seaming them together, but that will give your garment a lot more structure, and the construction of it is, to me, in my opinion, sturdier. So anyway, it is, let's see, so the sample was knit with 9 inches of positive ease. So that is the Fern Line by Joanna Ang. Next one is the Deep Winter Sweater by Woolen Pine. This all over front cabling and cabling down the sleeves is so spectacularly beautiful. It is relaxed fit. I'm not going to call it oversized. I'm going to call it relaxed fit. And the cabling is also on the back. Now, you don't have to do it. You could do stockinette in the back. You could do a moss stitch on the back. You could do an Irish moss stitch, seed stitch, or an Irish moss stitch. That would be just beautiful. But look at the arms on this. This is really a I love cables type of sweater. I think I could do this in a blown yarn, like a drops style yarn, and that would just be so light and airy and beautiful and give great stitch definition. All right, let's see what she uses here. Bulky weight, 16 stitches and 22 rows over the 4 inches in stocking net. Okay, and she used US 10 needles flat and in the round. So the ribbing is using 4.5 millimeter US size 7 needles, and the main body is using 6 millimeter US 10 needles. I think this would be I don't want to say a quick knit, because it is cables. So sometimes people are faster than others when they knit cables, but here's what she says about it. Thick, plush cables meet a tailored silhouette for a sweater that feels timeless, well-fitted, and incredibly satisfying to knit. This is the kind of sweater people do a double take on when you tell them you knit it. Warm without feeling heavy, structured yet comfortable, and full of beautiful details on the needles. Deep Winter is made for long evenings of knitting, mugs of hot cocoa, and reaching for the same sweater again and again. Okay, they did use a blown yarn with a soft halo and a gentle loft that lets the cables bloom beautifully. Wow, this is really pretty. It is knit seamlessly, top down, set in sleeve cable pullover designed for a tailored yet cozy fit. The front and back shoulders are worked flat and shaped with short rows to create a clean structured shoulder and neckline. After the armholes, the body is joined in the round and works straight to the hem. So very similar to Joanna Eng's sweater, the Fern line. I love this. It is finished up with a 1x1 rib. So if you're looking for a cable sweater, this definitely could be it. I love this. There's another cable sweater. Oh, I'm going to have such a hard time because this one's beautiful too. It's called the Cable Joy Sweater, and it is by Lene Croft, which is, she is the designer of the picnic sweater. I'll put a little, it looked like gingham on the bottom. Very, very cute. This is using a worsted weight yarn. And the gauge on it is 18 stitches and 27 rows over 4 inches. Using, let's see, I think it's the US size 8, the 5mm needles. She also uses a 4mm needle, US size 6 for this. And it goes from extra small to 3XL. The Cable Joy sweater is a simple and harmonious sweater with a calm expression. The central cable forms a peaceful focal point while the traditional cables along the sides and sleeve create balance. The fit is relaxed without being oversized. A modern basic sweater that is simultaneously both classic and timeless. The pattern comes with 3 different yarn choices, all of which add something different to the sweater. Now, I just think that's beautiful. That's Lene Croft, the Cable Joy sweater. The name of this sweater is called The Wintering by Alicia Plummer, and it is knit in an Aran weight yarn. The gauge is 16 stitches and 20 rows to 4 inches in stockinette, using needle size 5mm, US size 8. I believe that the ribbing is used 4mm, US size 6. She used Peer Gynt Sandnesgarn with the tin silk mohair. So she held 2 together. But here's what she says. What makes this special? A modified, gently set in sleeve, a slouchy sweatshirt cut that is simultaneously polished. Size inclusive, up to 80.5 inches. 2 neckline options because sometimes you want classic and sometimes you want cozy. You get to choose. A comforting fabric of classic tweed and a soft mohair. It can be worn with a wide range of ease. For a close fit, choose 2 to 4 inches of positive ease. For a roomy fit, which is modeled on Alicia, choose a 6 to 8 inch positive ease. I love that. This is just a really great staple sweater that you can put into your closet and wear again and again and again. So I love that one. The Wintering by Alicia Plummer. Okay, next. The Snowburst pullover. Beautiful colorwork sweater. Look at the design on that. I absolutely love. It's a combination of snowflakes and leaves and all kinds of other beautiful winter designs. I'm going to go ahead and put a close-up picture on here. This is knit in a DK. The designer on this is, let me look here, Whitney Terrell is the designer. And the gauge is 20 stitches to 31 rows and 4 inches in stockinette stitch on a US 4mm, on a 4mm or US size 6 needle. The ribbing is using a 3.5mm US size 4 needle. And she says the sweater is knit from the top down with some short row shaping to raise the back of the neck for comfort. The colorwork chart is started after the short rows and continues to the underarm separation. Once working the body and sleeves, the stranded colorwork is finished and you are working with your main color only. So beautiful Snowburst pullover by Whitney Terrell. We have 3 more sweaters. First one is another cute one, the Lazy Sweater by Whippet Knits. And as you can tell, this is a dog sweater, but isn't that adorable? I love the design of it. I love how they teach you how long to make it. They give you everything you need to make the perfectly fit sweater for your dog. This is knit up in an Aran weight yarn, 17 stitches and 22 rows. You can use a US 4.5, you can use a 4.5mm US size 7, a 5mm US size 8, or a 5.5mm US size 9. So they go through all of that. This designer is not English speaking, but it is in English. There is an option. So she says this designed for whippets, but it can also be designed for smaller bodied dogs. My daughter has a mini Dachshund, and this is what I'm going to knit for her dog. It's really easy and fun to do. The back is measured where the neck and the back meet. The dog's neck is perpendicular to the back. It tells you all you need to know to make this sweater for a dog. I just thought it was adorable. She has a lot of other designs. Obviously, whippets are her favorite, and that's why it's called Whippet Knits, but I thought it was worth mentioning because it was a really, really cute sweater. Also, Stephen West has a lot of great dog sweaters if you wanted to head over and look at his. But this one dropped in the month of December, so we're including it here. The next one is a petite knit, but it is not an adult sweater. It is the Auto Sweater Junior. How cute is this? I am thinking grandsons. Grandsons. This is so cute. Actually, it would look adorable on my granddaughter too. This is a great looking sweater. So it's knit in a worsted weight yarn. The gauge is 18 stitches and 26 rows over 4 inches in stockinette using the larger needles. The larger needles for her are 4mm US size 6. Starts off sizes 1 to 2, and it goes all the way up to 12 to 14 years. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 sizes. So it goes from toddler all the way through to early teens. I love that. So she says the Auto Sweater Junior is worked from the top down in a stripe pattern. First, the back yoke is worked. Next, each shoulder is worked separately and back and forth on a circular needle. These are then joined to form the front yoke. The front and back yoke are then joined to form the body, which is worked in the round on a circular needle. The sleeves are worked from stitches that are picked up, knitted along the armhole openings. The folded neck edge is worked at the end from stitches that are picked up, knitted around the neck opening. So very traditional, basic, top down. You say seamless is because you're not taking a needle and seaming it together, but you technically are creating seams by picking up these stitches and then continuing to knit. It is designed for 7 3/4 to 9, so 8 to 10 inches of positive ease, which I love that on the chest size. That is the Auto Sweater Junior by Petite Knits. Now the very last sweater that I'm going to highlight here for the month of December is the Rosy Yoke sweater. So for those of you who liked the Rosy sweater, this is a bit of a different design. Instead of 2 rows of colorwork roses, there's only 1. The construction is different because this is a round yoke sweater. It is not knit or constructed the same way as the Rosy sweater. It is knit on Aran weight yarn, and the gauge is 17 stitches and 22 rows over 14 inches in stockinette using a 5mm US size 8. Okay, so It says Rosy Yoke sweaters worked from the top down with the rose border knitted into the circular yoke. The rest of the sweater is kept simple, worked in stockinette stitch with ribbed edges. So I like that. You can make it as big as or as little as you want. There's a lot of ideas for that one. If you think that the rosy sweater is too much color work, there was a lot of color work, I'll be honest, because I did it. I think that the Rosy Yoke sweater might be just something you need. Well, that's it for today. That is all of the December 2025 new patterns that I liked, that I wanted to share with you. I hope this gives you some inspiration going into the new year. I will be doing a 2026 knits wish list. If I had infinite amounts of time, these are all the things that I would knit. And I think it's almost just under 30. I did knit 18 this year. I could probably knit more. We'll see. But with that said, I hope this gave you some inspiration. I hope you're looking forward to lots of wonderful knitting in the new year. Make sure you put joy in every stitch, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.